This is the Cleveland Real Estate Investor Podcast with Mike Reilly. On this episode, we talk with Mike Ferrante, real estate agent at Century 21, about who are the key players in your team when it comes to buying real estate. We talk about the contractor, we talk about the real estate agent, the title company, etc. This is an installation of our series to Airbnb or Not to Be, where we discussed the benefits and pitfalls of buying a property and turning it into a short-term furnished rental.
All right, hi everybody. This is Mike Reilly here. I've got my guest, our wizard realtor, Mike Ferrante. Mike, how you doing today?
Fantastic, Mike. Glad to be here.
Okay, well you're remote, so you're calling from your chaise lounge, right, at home?
That's right. I'm eating bonbons with my feet up, and yes, you got it.
A crackling fire. Yeah. Okay, I get it. Our first episode on our whole to Airbnb or not to Airbnb, we dealt with talking with Brooke and how we do this in-house, buying a property. I mean, first of all, recognizing a property to buy, and then figuring out how much we're going to need to put into it. And, Brooke does the contracting work. So he was giving us some insight along with me in terms of setting up the work order, the blueprint, the man-hour profit, what you're looking for, how much you should spend, what to do, what not to do, etc. But this episode here is going to be what's important for you is for that person, that outside investor who you do deal with a lot, people out of the country, out of state, who are looking to buy property. And I know we did an expansive podcast earlier about mistakes of buying property in Cleveland, but this is going to be about assembling the team. So for those investors who are looking to buy a property and they don't have a contracting company like I do, how do you assemble a team? How do you assemble? First of all, what's the team look like?
Right.
So why don't you, let's get all the position players lined up, the team you're going to need if you decide to take the plunge into the shark-infested waters of Cleveland real estate.
Yeah. So, this is something we talk about a lot. And, I think that people get excited about buying either investment properties or even just buying a house that they're going to live in. And they get to the finish line and they get the keys and then they kind of say, now what? But I think it's really important to think about the team, as we call it, before you get to the finish line. So, the obvious one that we're going to talk about today is the contractor. You don't want to be sitting there holding your keys and then be saying, all right, well, who's going to do this and that, and try to get those bids. And then you have time being wasted. You want to have that ready. Begin getting that ready during the closing process. But, the other key members of the team, of course, are your real estate professional, because, again, it's not just about numbers on paper. It's about knowing the neighborhoods, knowing the streets, knowing the types of properties, especially if you're looking at investments. What do people want to rent? You guys talk about Airbnb. Does something in Little Italy work? Well, of course. But what about out in the suburbs? Maybe not.
Right.
Other team members that you should be thinking about are your title company.
Now, here's my little rule of thumb in terms of, let's talk about hiring the real estate professional, which I know is kind of, I'm not necessarily teeing it up for you, Mike, plug for Century 21. But,
right.
I think one of the things you want to look for in hiring a real estate professional is how much pushback they're going to give you. Or are they just going to just feed your delusions? Because at the end of the day, come on, what does the real estate professional want? They want to sell you a house. Okay? Now, if you want to spin off all these scenarios, oh yeah, if we put the swimming pool in the back, we could really, get X, Y, and Z, and all the real estate professional is doing is being a bobblehead. Yeah, that sounds great. All they want to do is sell the house and just leave it up to you, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And that's the problem, is that you have a lot of folks working in our business that just want to get to the finish line and collect that check, and they don't have a long-term view about things.
Right.
So you do want someone that's going to push back. You do want someone who's going to point out the negatives and not just the positives.
Yeah.
You should know going in what the risks are.
Right. So that's our first question. How much bad news is the real estate? So the more bad news they give you, the more pushback, the better they look in your eyes. All right, who's our next?
For sure.
Who's our next person we need to have on the team?
I would definitely look at accounting, because especially if you're an overseas investor, that gets pretty complicated. I've got people I work with. They have to not only pay taxes here, but say they're taking their income overseas, they have to figure out the best way to handle their taxes there. Across state lines, things can get tricky. And even if you're here in Ohio and you're investing, there's so many little nuances to doing your taxes. You're doing this if you're doing an investment, you're doing it to make money. So why wouldn't you protect as much of that income as you can? So the accountant is really a key player, and you want to have that set up ahead of time. Do you collect your income in an LLC? Do you do an S corp? There's all these questions that you really should be asking ahead of time, and that's where the accountant, and then with the corporation, sometimes you might need to bring in an attorney, and it's good to already have that attorney in place too. Because you don't want to wait to look for an attorney until you have your first problem.
Right, and I think if you don't have an attorney who you've worked with or an accountant you've worked with, you do not buy real estate in Cleveland for investment. You are not ready for prime time.
That's right.
Okay, why don't you just go to the toilet, take the money you're going to spend, and just flush it down the toilet? I hate to say that. Maybe you can delete that comment,
That's
Mark.
good.
Okay. No, but the fact of the matter is you don't know what you're doing, and I think sometimes when I think about all the steps involved in getting into real estate investing, it's like opening up a restaurant. Boy, it sure sounds sexy. You know what? Hey, I just opened up this diner. I just opened up this restaurant. But restaurants are notorious for losing money.
Yeah, and the first thing you do isn't run out and buy some food, right? You've got to do your market research ahead of time. What kind of restaurant is going to succeed? Do I have enough traffic? Do I have enough parking? Before you even buy your first hamburger or whatever you're going to serve.
Exactly, and then you need a wait staff, and then you need a manager, and then you need, et cetera, et cetera. It is not for the faint of heart. So investing in real estate is, you'd be better off if you are not prepared to really approach this in a business-like way. You'd be better off just buying those what do they call it, REITs, those real estate investments.
I was going to say, get a mutual fund. Don't jump in the pool. Just sit on the sidelines, or let someone else figure it out for you, because you really aren't ready if you're not prepared to have that team assembled.
So accountant, check. Real estate professional who's going to tell you everything you need to know whether you like it or not, check. Lawyer, check. Now the next thing is on our team.
Well, I do mention title company, because that's important too. The title company is kind of overlooked, and in many cases, people don't even remember what title company they used, and that's a good thing. Okay, the title company is one of those players in the background, like the role player on the team. They rebound, they play defense,
Right.
But if you remember your title company, it's usually because there was some flub up. They screwed something up, delayed your closing, screwed up a deal.
Right.
You shouldn't even think about the title company, but it's important to have a good one and someone who's going to be there in a pinch.
Mike, to use another sports analogy for those following football, title companies like special teams. When they miss the field goal, when punt gets blocked, when they're giving up a long TD run, then you start looking at the special teams. So
that's right. I thought I was the master of analogies, Mike, but clearly it's you.
Jumping into a pool with no water. How's that for an analogy? The other thing is when you get into the closing costs, this is what I learned a long time ago. I started finding stuff like leather-bound mortgage deed, $200. It was unbelievable what was getting thrown in there. So, again, your real estate professional is going to be watching your back, because that real estate professional knows that you're in there for the long haul. And this is just the first of many properties that you're going to buy once you start getting that team assembled. And you, as opposed to, and I know I've been preaching to you this for a long time, I don't want an investor coming in who comes into town, is going to occupy my time every 3 months looking at property and never buys anything. Okay?
Yeah.
No, the meter's running. Hey, you want to come in and occupy my time? That's $75 an hour. Okay? And you buy lunch. Okay? That's what that is. Okay? So
there's a real estate coach I love, and he talks about exactly that, Mike. And he says, and he kind of says it tongue in cheek, but he says, the definition of a buyer is someone who buys. And he kind of pauses for a second, and we're all sitting there going like, and he's like, no, that's it.
Yeah.
If you're running clients around and they don't ever make an offer or buy anything, then you basically have a buddy that you're going looking at houses with.
I know. Well, you know what? I have to digress because, my wife and I go to New York on our anniversary. We've been doing that for over 30 years. So we've been and I developed a system when my wife, happily married guy, great wife, but when she goes shopping in New York, down in Soho, I bring the iPad. I got a good book on that iPad. I go into these stores, I sit down, I read my book, and my wife goes wandering around the store. Every now and then, she may find something she wants to buy. But I swear to God, we've gone there so many times, and she's really smart, and she's really good with the money. And she may buy something now and then, but a lot of times it's just the joy of going into a store and looking. Right. And I don't know how many times I've been I sit in the couch, some Soho, store, and the guys are following their girlfriends or wives. And they look at me reading and they say, oh my God, I should have brought my book. This guy knows. And I feel, I'm the savvy tourist here in New York. But anyways, you're absolutely right. Buying versus looking. So we've got 3 players on the team. Fourth player. No, it was the title company. I'm sorry. Fourth is the title company. We got real estate professional, accountant, attorney, title company, which usually a good real estate professional can guide you to that title company, right?
That's right. And you mentioned costs. That was a good point. Some people say, they're all the same. That's really not true. Especially if you're going to buy multiple properties, you could be looking at a couple $100 up to $500-$600 difference per deal. That adds up. Right.
And you know what? If you lock it, if you're, again, the serious buyer who's going to be investing some money, you are going to want to use that title company over and over again.
Right.
Over and over again.
Like our friend Fast Tony over
Fast
at Fast
Tony.
Track. We should give him.
I'm going to throw some. Fast Tony's going to be advertising on this podcast, right, Amari?
Yeah.
Okay. He doesn't know it, but he's going to be advertising. Anyways,
well, this is free plug.
And especially if our investor who say buys 4 or 5, he says, okay, I want to cash out. Now you got your title company who can step in and help you sell it, right?
Absolutely. You have costs on both sides, and obviously you want to minimize your costs but not sacrifice quality. Cheap isn't always the best, but there's fair price and someone who's not going to gouge you and still do a good job.
Okay, now, all right, our next member of the team, drum roll Amari, is that's your cue, Mike.
Contractor.
Contractor.
Not gouging you and doing a good job. That's a great segue.
Yeah.
Yeah, contractor. We need 10 podcasts for this. The contractor, let me just free associate here what you got to look for. Let's say our investors in Chicago or, Akron or in Michigan somewhere, and you're not going to use Reilly Painting and Contracting, but we're here. We're here to listen to your tales of woe at $75 an hour.
That's right.
If you want us to help you vet a contractor. But no, I think a couple things you need to that are keys to hiring a good contractor. One, do they get back to you when you
Yeah.
call.
It's like interviewing. You're interviewing for a job. I mean, that's the thing that people forget is that think of it like they're interviewing for a job. I have a great story to share with you, Mike, and let me interject a piece of it right now because this is going to head you down the right path. This is a prequel to the conversation that we're about to have. There's a house that you know of. It's over on Maple, and the guy went with the cheap contractor. And guess what?
I think I know who that is. Yeah.
You know who the. I mean, you know the house. I'm not going to say names or anything, but you know the house. It's over on Maple. The guy went with the cheap contractor. He's about 4 weeks in. He calls me up the other day and says, "My contractor walked off the job. I don't know what to do." Obviously, he picked the wrong guy. He went with the cheap guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and sometimes the cheap guy, and this is something I think everybody needs to be aware of. A contractor, they're trying to make things happen. It's, they could be a real good carpenter, real good.
Mm-hmm.
They work for a painting company, they work for another company, and they say, I want to go off on my own. They don't understand how the business works.
And that's right.
So the business of contracting at the end of the day is to make sure you don't lose money. Now, what happens if he underbid? First of all, he didn't think he underbid, but midway through the job, it's becoming apparent that he is mammothly underbid. Yep. And he better walk now, or he's going to get sucked under the undertow. So if somebody calls him up and says, hey, I need somebody to do X, Y, and Z. Here's $5,000 to do it. He's looking at the job he's at now, our friend on Maple, and he's out of there, okay, in a heartbeat. And I think that's what happens. So when you're getting competitive bids from contractors, just keep in mind one thing. You're looking at the low bid, and you got to ask yourself, really, does that guy know how to estimate? So, and then again, time is money. I mean, let's say I'm 25-30% more than the other bid. Well, first of all, we're going to get it done in 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
Oh yeah,
we're not going to get it done
We're
not going to get it done in 4 months. So think about just the holding cost, the taxes, the insurance. You're not being able to rent it. You need to turn this thing over. And
then, Mike, all the other expenses too. The taxes, the insurance, the maintenance, the utilities, the lost rent. I mean, you go on and on. The cost involved with dragging a job out for 3 or 4 months as opposed to getting it done in 2 or 3 weeks is immense. The other thing that people don't think about, Mike, is the risk. Cleveland Heights is a great city, but it's not without an occasional break-in. When copper prices were skyrocketing, I can't tell you how many houses in Cleveland Heights and University Heights that I went into where the copper was gone. The bad guys are smart. They figure out ways to get in and out of these houses, steal what they need to steal, and a vacant house is a target. And the longer it sits, the more likely it's going to get hit.
Right. When we go into a property, well, most of the time it's our own properties, unless we're working for one of our longtime investors. That the first thing we do is secure the property. And when I talk about secure the property, I'm talking about a very sophisticated security system. We have signs on the front door and the back door which basically says only RPC personnel are allowed in here. The water's been turned off. There is no copper. We're already telling the potential crook, don't even think about coming in here. And so locking a house down, making sure the water is turned off, and the heat is running in the wintertime. I mean, we're producing this in the middle of November. Hey, you know what? Outside faucets, that water needs to be turned off, and the heat needs to be regulated at a 50-degree temperature. I mean, what happens if the heat goes off? Because there's a power outage.
University Heights, our Washington deal. Remember that one? Those poor people, their pipe burst on the 3rd floor, and look what happened there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
but Mike, to your point about the alarm, do you think 2 guys in a pickup truck contracting company has alarms that they install for people? No. I mean, they've got their toolbox and their hammer, and and they show up, and maybe they do the work, maybe they don't. But these little intangibles, like thinking ahead and saying, look, I've done this for what is it, like 35 years now or something, Mike.
Right.
You've seen all the mistakes, and hey, this is going to be a 4-week project. We need an alarm system on this house. And when you're bidding jobs, you're presenting all that to the client. So, I think the other thing.
Sometimes the client, sometimes you investors out there, you buy that house for $50,000 or $60,000. We talked about this at length in another podcast. The suckers coming in who think they're the sharps, buying property here and overspending. But what will happen is, for an investor, they'll buy a $40,000 house for $40,000, and in their mind they think all they have to do is put 50 in. No, I'm sorry, it's not 50, it's 70, okay, that you need to put in. I don't know how many times, maybe some of your clients, Mike, our friend on Maple, going in there and say, look, you got $75,000 in here you got to do. Oh, no, I'm getting bids for X, Y, and Z. Oh, okay, whatever, now.
Mike, I have a hilarious story, and unfortunately it's that same guy. I told him.
I hope he doesn't listen to this podcast.
I know. That's funny. But he was talking about the roof, and he said, I'm going to patch up the roof. And I kept telling him, no, that you're going to spend thousands patching it up. You might as well just get a new roof on that house. And so he said that he had a guy, and he was going to do it for some crazy number, like $1,500.
Oh,
and I
no.
said, that doesn't sound right. I'm telling you, you're going down a dark path. Don't do it. And I said, please don't do it. And so fast forward about 2 weeks, and I'm talking to him, and I said, did you at least vet the guy? Did you find anything out about him? And he said, yeah, I met him. And, his first answer was, I felt very confident. And then when he met with him again, he asked the questions I told him to, and the guy told him, and I quote, oh, don't worry, I'll just watch a YouTube video to figure out how to do it. That happened, Mike.
Yeah, well, contractor horror stories. In our business, we have subs that we work with, but these are, for the most part, long-time subs. We make a phone call, we know they're going to be there. And we know what what the price is, and a lot of times it's double the price of somebody who's doing it on the side. But you get you get what you pay for. I was talking to a friend of mine, a person, and she loves to go out and buy at sales. She buys raincoats, and she'll buy it on sale. She'll buy it on sale. She'll buy it on sale. And the upshot is, they cost maybe a third of what a real good quality like a Ralph Lauren or a Patagonia would cost for. So a raincoat at Patagonia, a real good one, that's like $400. But that's the raincoat you're going to have for 30 years, okay?
Right.
And when you think about buying 10 raincoats over a period of 10 years, you paid 3 times the amount of money. So, again, one guy said to me, about a year ago when I was telling him that story, he says, I can't afford to buy cheap, because you end up spending more. So the contractor is probably like the violin section of a concert, of an orchestra. That's great orchestras always have great string sections. Or lead guitar in a band, or a cleanup hitter, or the closer on a baseball team. The contractor is the key. And Better Business Bureau does a great job of rating companies. I highly recommend Triple B. Also, the city. Go to the city and make sure that they are listed as a registered contractor. Do they have a website with a working phone number, not a website that they threw together 3 years ago? That is critical.
Mike, this thread you're on right now, the way I was going to phrase this was, how easy are they to find?
Right.
Because if you can find them all over the web, if there's reviews everywhere, if the city knows about them, if the suppliers know them, how easy are they to find? If it's 2 guys in a pickup truck and you can't find them, that's how easy they can disappear.
Well, and then if you're an outside investor, if you're in Europe, Middle East, California, and you're you need to that this is a reliable show-up company. Having a storefront, having an office, having a long-time presence is critical because that is going to be the key to your investment is the quality of the contractor you have.
You don't want to have to use that attorney who's on your team, right? You don't want to have problems with it. One of the things we used to do, Mike, I don't know if you know this, in another lifetime, I was a commercial project manager. And one of the things we would do when we were vetting contractors would be that we would ask them, okay, who do you buy from? Where are you going to get your materials? So
I know where you're going on this. Go ahead.
Yeah. You call the supplier up because I don't want to hear from you how great you are. I want to hear other people say, yeah, this guy's top notch. So, if I'm checking on you and you tell me, oh, we buy from Sherwin-Williams down the street, I'm going to call that store and I'm going to talk to the guys that sell you the paint. And I'm going to say, hey, I'm looking at a couple painters or, whatever. And
right.
Does this guy, do you hear good things about him? Does he pay his bills?
Does he pay his bills on time?
You got it.
Because now I'm so glad let's follow that thread because this is because this is very important for everybody out there to listen to. The last thing you want is your contractor to hire a sub and then not pay him. The contractor does. You pay the contractor, but the contractor doesn't pay the sub. Guess what the sub does? He puts a lien on your property.
Yeah, and I don't think people understand. They say, yeah, but I paid the general, so I'm fine. No, you're not. If that general disappears and that subcontractor comes knocking on your door, guess what? You're writing another check until you can sort it out with, collecting from your general contractor. I don't think people realize that. They think, well, I've got proof of payment. How can that happen to me? It can.
A lot of times I think, let's bring our lawyer back into the spotlight here because let's say you're an investor. You don't want to have to get in and get, you're talking to a contractor. Hey, I need to see your workers' comp certificate. I need to see your liability insurance. I need to see,
Sure.
You need to fill out a credit form to make sure your credit's good before we work with you. You know what? If it's a good contractor, they got no problem filling that out.
And they pull it out of their back pocket. I mean, I'm saying that figuratively, but when you ask reputable contractors for those kind of things, it's not, oh, well, I got to make 3 phone calls to get it. No, it's, of course, we have that for every job.
And you know what? If I'm a contractor and I'm hearing the investor asking me for that information, I know that person is a buyer. That's a buyer. Right. That's somebody who's serious. That's not somebody who's, because they're going to do their due diligence on you, and by them asking you for that information, they in turn are providing you with a due diligence on them. Okay?
Yeah, that's a great point.
I don't want to have to work with somebody who doesn't have 2 nickels to rub together, who's endlessly financing or, I want somebody who's professional about this, who's got a lawyer, accountant. Everybody's working with the same thing. The same goal is, thank you for your business. We're going to move this to the finish line. So the contractor then is going to be the great resource for you as that house is finished. And if you hold that for rental, now that contractor can provide you with the handyman stuff. The plumber, the electrician, the HVAC guy, the furnace guy, the boiler guy, the roof leaks. The whole 9 yards can be handled by the contractor. So the contractor now becomes those 3 key points: accountant, attorney, contractor. Those are the 3, and then the realtors out there along with the title company, and they're out there, but they're not the centerpiece of maintaining this investment.
Right. No, that's totally true. And the other thing is that the realtor can be a sort of a clearinghouse for all these folks. I hate when I hear people saying, well, I bought a house and now I'm doing the research to try to find all these other players. The thing is, if you're involved in the business long enough, just like you are, Mike, you know the people. You already know the players. You say, well, here, I've got a title company I work with. I've got a contractor I work with.
Right.
It doesn't mean you shouldn't still do your own due diligence, but you shouldn't have to be starting from scratch when you're building your team.
Right. And, the other thing when the realtor comes in, because I know you've seen this, I've seen this all the time. You get a realtor who's, I don't know, not the minor league realtor. They've got a brother-in-law who can do this. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I mean, I know somebody who can do this. No, I want to know somebody who takes care of your house. Okay.
Right.
Whoever's taking care of your house, that's the person I want to know. All right. Because again, the realtor should be about the long game. This is just the first house you're going to buy. They're not just here to sell you whatever, whatever you want to buy and not push back. They're here for the long game. So they actually could be the great resource for a contractor. They should be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Another class I was in, the guy said, we should be like Google to our clients. When they need something, they shouldn't say, well, let me go online and start researching. If we're doing a good job, their first inclination should be, let me ask Mike.
Okay. Now, the last point on this, the last member of the team, the house it's all finished. You're either going to flip it, which means you go back to the realtor, or you go back, or now you've got to bring in the property manager.
Right.
And we have a whole podcast on the perils of property managers. Mm-hmm. Buyer beware. It's a snake pit out there.
Oh, it's horrible.
But we're not going to spend any more valuable time on this podcast. Look on the directory. It's there. The pitfalls of hiring a property manager. So
yeah, great topic.
All right, Mike. Well, thanks for your time. Go out and sell some more houses. Like our house in Cumberland.
That's right. I'm on it. We're open house this weekend.
And I want nothing but buyers. I don't want any lookers in there. If they're looking, don't give them any free food.
That's right.
75.
Thanks, guys. Always enjoy it.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
All right,
Talk to you later.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Cleveland Real Estate Investor Podcast. Stay tuned for our next installation of To Airbnb or Not to Be. All episodes of the Cleveland Real Estate Investor Podcast can be found at our website, www.reilly-properties.com, or find it on your favorite streaming services such as SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, Overcast, and more.